Imagine a new tenant moves into your apartment building, and he needs the entire electrical system completely rewired just for his unit. But instead of billing him for that massive upgrade, your landlord splits the cost evenly across everyone's rent. That's exactly what is happening to your power bill. Most electric utilities in America are monopolies. Surprisingly, they don't make their big money just by selling you electricity. They generate their real profits by building new infrastructure, like transmission lines. For every new project, the utility charges ratepayers for the cost of construction and then adds a guaranteed profit margin on top. The more they build, the more you pay, and the more they earn. Enter the AI boom. To power these new models, tech companies are building massive facilities filled with power-hungry servers. For a utility company looking to justify massive new construction projects, AI data centers just handed them the greatest excuse in grid history. Because of how the rules are written, these utility monopolies are incentivized to overbuild for tech giants. They get to lock in guaranteed returns for their own shareholders, while shifting the long-term financial risk onto everyday citizens. To see what this looks like in practice, look at a utility in Virginia called Dominion and Entergy. Right now, they run more data centers out of their territory than any other utility on the planet. Recently, Dominion went to state regulators and asked for $7.6 billion to build new transmission lines. During the hearings, one of Dominion's own witnesses admitted that regular customers would be paying for more than half of it, including the lines that only serve these new data centers. To Virginia's credit, regulators at the state capitol actually fought back. They stripped away $350 million in hidden charges and forced Dominion to create a completely new rate class specifically for data centers, locking them into strict 14-year contracts. This chart breaks down the long-term cost distribution of that exact deal. Even with those strict 14-year contracts in place, everyday ratepayers will still be forced to absorb 61% of the total upgrade costs once those contracts expire. The tech companies get the short-term benefit, and the public gets stuck paying for the aging hardware. Remember, this cost shift happened in a scenario where regulators actively scrutinized the deal and won. When regulators simply stop asking questions, the financial damage becomes catastrophic. That brings us to a small town called Holly Ridge, Louisiana, where a quarter of the residents live below the poverty line. Recently, Meta selected this exact spot to build the largest AI data center in the world. To understand the sheer scale of this single facility, look at the energy demand. This data center will require 3 times the amount of electricity that the entire city of New Orleans uses in a single year. To generate that kind of juice, you need 3 entirely new power plants, carrying a total price tag of $3.2 billion. Normally, a massive project like this goes out to a competitive bid to keep costs down, but the local power grid is run by a utility company called Entergy. Instead of taking competitive bids, Entergy skipped the process entirely and just hired themselves to build the plants. That single decision instantly generated $178 million in new profit for their shareholders. With that much money on the line, they moved fast. The final approval vote was originally scheduled for October, but Entergy aggressively pushed it up to August. The public was given exactly 1 week's notice to review a multi-billion-dollar deal. By rushing the vote, local communities were intentionally boxed out of infrastructure decisions that will hijack the price of their electricity for decades to come. Meta only signed a 15-year power agreement. The gas plants Entergy is building, however, are designed to last around 30 years. This leaves a 15-year gap where local citizens are forced to pay for infrastructure built entirely for a company that might already be gone. Meta made sure they wouldn't be liable for that gap. They didn't actually sign this deal under their own name. Instead, they created a shell company called Ledley LLC to execute the agreement. Then, on the exact day regulators approved the power plant, Meta quietly registered a second shell company in Delaware called Bayonet Investor. 2 months later, Meta used Bayonet to sell 80% of the entire project to a private equity firm. This move instantly transformed Meta from the owner of the facility into a mere tenant. As a tenant, Meta restructured its lease so that it now renews every 4 years. They can legally walk away in 48 months, leaving behind 30-year power plants and a $550 million transmission line connecting it all. Big tech companies rely on these shell games to privatize the short-term gains of AI. If the project fails, they exit the lease, trapping local citizens with the bill for massive abandoned infrastructure. Instead of fixing these loopholes, politicians at the Louisiana state capitol passed a lining amendment, which legally turned this rushed no-bid process into a permanent template for future projects. That template is already spreading. Utilities across the country are suddenly proposing new data center megaprojects, using this aggressive playbook to bypass oversight. This graph illustrates the sudden financial toll. Right now, utilities nationwide have requested $31 billion in rate hikes. That number matches what they spent in the entire previous decade combined, all compressed into a single massive spike. The localized corporate heist in Holly Ridge provides the blueprint for a nationwide surge in utility rate hikes. Regional networks like PJM are already missing their own reliability targets. Massive new demand is pushing parts of the country toward rolling blackouts by 2027, creating a direct physical threat to the grid itself. You might think that if the AI bubble pops and these tech giants dial back their energy needs, electricity prices will naturally come back down due to simple supply and demand. But this is not a natural free market. The supply of electricity is being intentionally constrained so utility monopolies can guarantee their own profits, regardless of whether the community actually needs the power they are building. We have seen this playbook before, back in 2008. Insiders are structuring complex deals to ensure they can walk away cleanly, while regulators lower the barriers to entry instead of protecting the public. Until we understand the rigged legal mechanics driving these deals, the system will keep operating in the shadows. Tech giants and utility monopolies will successfully force everyday citizens to underwrite the riskiest bet in human history. The common warning that AI data centers are draining the grid overlooks a much more immediate reality. You are already paying for massive AI data centers that don't even exist yet. Look at the company whose name is actually on your bill. They make very little money by selling you raw electricity. Their actual business revolves around building physical infrastructure, like power lines and substations, and charging you for that construction through delivery and service fees. Roughly 10 to 15% of your monthly bill is a reservation fee. It is a charge for electricity you never actually use. The AI boom gave utility companies a reason to propose the largest infrastructure build-out in the history of the American grid, passing the tab for that reservation directly to you. This reservation fee works like a dinner party where 100 people RSVP. You set a table with 100 plates to prepare for the maximum crowd. If only 40 people actually show up to eat, you are still contractually obligated to pay the caterer for all 100 reserved plates. Your monthly bill covers the cost of having enough power standing by for the absolute maximum demand of the entire region, the total amount of electricity that might be used. The price of this mandatory grid reservation is determined by an obscure organization that quietly dictates the monthly budgets of 67 million Americans. That organization is PJM Interconnection. They operate the power grid across 13 states, forecasting exactly how much electricity the region will need to have in reserve. To guarantee that power is ready, PJM runs a yearly auction. Power plant owners submit bids for how much they want to be paid to reserve their electricity for the grid. PJM selects the cheapest bids first. They accept higher bids, moving left to right, until they secure enough power to meet forecasted demand. Once met, the auction closes, and every selected power plant is paid the same rate as the highest accepted bid. For years, this clearing price system operated quietly because American electricity demand remained flat. Cheap bids easily met the required supply, keeping your reservation fee low. That mathematical balance collapsed when big tech and AI data centers entered the picture. Because of the surge in projected demand from AI, the auction price exploded from $29 to $270. In December of 2025, the price hit $333, the absolute legal maximum. This translates to roughly $140 in extra costs per household, driven entirely by the forecasted demand of data centers. When companies like Meta or Microsoft plan a data center, they apply for grid connections in multiple states, shopping for the cheapest power deal. Utilities across the country have received grid connection requests totaling 700 gigawatts. For context, the entire United States only uses 477 gigawatts. When a tech giant finally commits to one location, they often leave their backup applications active in other states. These phantom data centers sit in the queue for months, never being officially canceled. PJM's automated systems ingest these uncancelled ghost applications, projecting a future demand that is much higher than reality. That record-breaking $333 auction price pays for capacity reserved by ghost data centers that will never be built. Ohio provides the ultimate proof that this demand is a mirage. It was one of the biggest hotspots for AI applications until regulators stepped in. Ohio regulators called the bluff of the tech developers. They mandated an 85% upfront fee to reserve power, along with strict penalties for canceling. Once real money was on the line, the queue evaporated. More than half of the requested power demands instantly disappeared. Every major player in this system, the utilities and the regulators, knows that the current forecast numbers are wildly inflated. If the forecasts are clearly artificial, the question remains why the loophole hasn't been closed. An inflated forecast keeps the auction price at the legal limit, which is incredibly profitable for power companies. Constellation Energy made $2.2 billion from a single inflated auction. The financial markets are sensitive to any change in this arrangement. When Donald Trump proposed forcing tech companies to cover the costs of their own electricity usage, Constellation Energy's stock plummeted nearly 10%. The only current protection for consumers is a temporary price cap forced by a lawsuit from the governor of Pennsylvania. That cap has just expired, leaving the June 2026 auction completely open. This broken system serves as the actual business model for the modern utility. Even if the AI bubble pops tomorrow, you are left paying for the infrastructure of a